Captain Ibrahim Traoré, the military leader of Burkina Faso, has responded sharply to General Lecointre, the former chief of staff of the French army, on his recent remarks regarding the potential of France militarily recolonizing Africa within the next 10 years. Traoré has stated that there will be fierce opposition to any move to recolonize Africa. He has publicly declared that, in order to uphold the sovereignty of African states, his country will be prepared to confront any force that attempts to impose its will on the continent. Traoré makes it very evident in his strong and unambiguous statement that any attempt to recolonize Africa will not be accepted. So, before we go any further, let me just show you a video in which General Lecointre, the French Army's Chief of Staff, announced that France will be militarily reoccupying Africa in the coming 10 years. I'll show you a video of Captain Ibrahim Traoré's unshakable reaction to this announcement after that.
What is our common destiny as Europeans in the Mediterranean and Africa, where our fate hangs in the balance? We, the French, have continuously endeavored to instill in Europeans an awareness of the imperative to collectively act in Africa and the Mediterranean. I am deeply saddened by the failure of our commitments to the Sahel. In any case, we must question ourselves because we cannot fathom the prospect of an entire continent on our doorstep sinking into governmental and state apparatus destruction, descending into various forms of chaos and civil war across many countries, and grappling with escalating challenges induced by climate change, which disproportionately affect vulnerable populations like those in Africa. Furthermore, we must consider the looming demographic explosion that Africa will undergo, unlike any other continent before. To imagine that this will unfold in the next 10 to 20 years without repercussions for Europe, as if we inhabit a protective bubble, is simply unconscious. Thus, I believe that this shared interest should compel Europe at some point to act as a unified political entity capable of safeguarding its own interests, even if it means deploying its military forces. The withdrawal from the Sahel was a bitter pill to swallow for all those who were invested. I myself struggle greatly with this decision. It represents a failure on the part of France, Europe, and Africa, stemming primarily from our failure to recognize that effective action must be comprehensive and coordinated. Restoring governance, reviving administrations, and fostering development must occur simultaneously and in concert, or else we are destined to fail. This is precisely what transpired. What I find difficult to accept is when people attribute this failure solely to a military operation. The truth is that the military aspect was just one dimension of a multifaceted challenge. I am convinced that within a few years, whether it be in 10 years, fewer or more, we will be compelled to return and assist these African countries. China, Russia, and Wagner will not offer sustainable solutions to the profound difficulties faced by these countries and their populations.
Start preparing for the war of high intensity. I hope I make myself understood. It's not just terrorism. Open your eyes. It's much more than that. It's a war of decolonization. And you must have heard these last days, some other generals who made us understand that if they fail to come with their armies to recolonize us, they have to come. Well, prepare for the war of high intensity. Either they will come themselves, or they will go through their local valets who are here to try to disturb our peace. So whoever, I say whoever, whether it's terrorism or any other army that must come to disturb our peace, we must prepare to welcome them in the long term and intensely. That's why I tell you, prepare for the war of high intensity. And we will follow these trainings. We will move on to other groups to intensify the operations and try to pacify. These are the steps. And this terrorism will be defeated because they know that it will be defeated, that they are preparing either at the local level here or to come with their armies to fight us. Well, we will prepare to welcome them. Thank you very much for all the work, everything that could be improved regarding the fighting conditions first, but also the working conditions. We will make an effort. More than ever now, you are one with the population. This is all we are looking for, the armed nations. Continue to keep this flame of unity with the civilian population so that they can support you. Because it is thanks to them that we can fight today. It is the people who understood. If the people had not understood, we would not be able to equip you like this. It is not possible. But the people understood, they committed themselves, and we are making a lot of effort so that the operational capacity only increases.
Therefore, based on the video featuring the former French Army Chief of Staff, General Lecointre, demand that leaders of independent and sovereign Africa give them serious and immediate consideration. The sovereignty and right to self-determination of African countries are seriously threatened if these allegations turn out to be accurate. It's time for African politicians to rise above foreign influence, act decisively, and even think about registering an official complaint. Respecting each African nation's sovereignty and territorial integrity cannot be compromised. In order to safeguard the interests of African nations, this is an urgent subject that requires immediate attention. As a result of European powers' colonization of numerous African countries throughout history, these countries' natural and human resources were exploited, and their cultures and identities were suppressed. The effects of colonialism are still felt, despite the fact that the majority of these countries gained official independence more than 50 years ago. What many people might not know is that France used a neocolonial system, known as La Francafrique, to maintain considerable control over the politics and economy of former French and Portuguese colonies. By a variety of strategies, France has been able to sustain its political and economic hegemony over 23 African countries under this system. Using the CFA franc, which is governed by the French Treasury and pegged to the euro, is one of these ways. This currency has drawn criticism for feeding the cycle of poverty and dependency, and for essentially restricting these countries' capacity to choose their own monetary policies. Moreover, France has been successful in managing these nations' natural resources, frequently with little consideration for the needs of nearby residents or the effects on the environment. Through business agreements that are one-sided. A large portion of the economic surplus produced by these countries can be diverted to France. This has given rise to allegations of exploitation and caused friction between France and numerous African countries. Apart from exerting economic dominance, France has also successfully imposed puppet regimes in numerous African nations by endorsing autocratic administrations and suppressing opposition. France has been successful in keeping up its influence and stifling criticism. Many African countries now suffer from a lack of political stability, which has a detrimental effect on the local populace. Overall, La Francafrique's neo-colonial structure has allowed France to retain considerable influence over the politics and economy of 23 African countries, sustaining an exploitative and dependent cycle that has drawn criticism from a wide range of quarters. Despite this, opposition to French dominance over Africa has existed throughout the lengthy Francafrique era and has grown considerably in recent years. A number of West African nations are currently openly defying France in their communities and diaspora, and prominent figures are coming out more frequently to defend and explain this opposition. The international society is in a state of upheaval with the latest revelation of French atrocities in Africa. It has exposed the heinous and long-standing policy of France and Africa, which has been kept hidden for far too long. Fuel to the fire has been given by the youthful, patriotic military rulers of Mali, Guinea, and Niger's unwavering rejection of France. As a result, France's reckoning days in Africa are finally upon us, particularly in its former colonies. The nation's horrible policy in Africa can no longer be hidden, and the scrutiny of its acts is intensifying. The current state of affairs in Africa is tense, and the crimes committed by France in that continent are finally coming to light. The demise of French colonial policies in Africa must be acknowledged. The young people of the former French colonies are fearlessly resisting the repressive hold of French neocolonialism. 8 former French colonies in Africa will switch from using the CFA to their own independent currency, the eco, which will be pegged to the euro instead of the French franc as of July of this year. This important accomplishment is a long overdue move toward these nations' autonomy and a critical step in escaping the bonds of colonialism. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe for more educative contents like this one. Tell us what you think about the message sent to France by Captain Ibrahim Traoré in the comments section below.